Okay, we're going into hoops now, and hoops and course designs. And I just want to see if I can hold up a course design I made recently. And as you can see, it's sort of like two circles, one larger than the other. Now what I did was, again, you might be able to see the shaded area, which cuts out some of the word. Okay, it was the handler spot. That meant that I set up the start line about, what is it, about 4 meters away on the edge there to the handler spot there. But I tried to make it so that the handler was, or could stand parallel to the dog at least, or slightly ahead. So when they said go, the dog had them in their view. And then they did a large circle, and then finally finished off by doing the smaller circle. So as we were saying, often it helps to allow the handler and the dog to settle in by making the start quite simple. Now, so even in the higher classes, you could start with a curve of hoops, okay, and then make up a way of changing direction. Whereas if you're doing the lower classes, the circle can continue, because then the handler can follow the dog by having a smaller circle in the centre. If the course looks a little bit too big, then of course, then you can say, well, with the lower classes, you only need to stay in the circle for the obstacles closest to you, and then you can step out of the circle to finish the course. So you have that opportunity or decision to make in the judging. As I say, it's also helpful to make sure, especially on a circle, the gaps are even, or as even as you can make it, okay, give or take a couple of inches or so. And then when you look at it, the dog has a natural line of sight. So as they're bending round, they can see the next hoop, and they can see their handler to the side, so they can just keep travelling. So having a circle in one direction. Now, some people, or it is very common, I've noticed, to have what they classify as the box scenario. So the dog is going from one direction straight across the box, and then another part of the course, another part of the course which turns them to cross the box in the other direction. It's a very common setup. If you're going to do this to help with changes of direction, there's a few things you need to think about. I'll go into them, I think, on another video. This is something perhaps that to be honest, if you're using a box, you're far better off getting the dog to go straight across it and not do right angle turns inside the box, outside the box, like that. Straight on. Okay. So you may have to box up to see whether the dog, has done it. But you must also think about the approach for the dog. Again, this is about lining the dog up, or being able to, the handler to have the time to make sure the dog is not off-piste. So for example, there, coming round this corner too sharply means that the dog won't have time to turn, or will have to work really hard to turn and take the hoop straight across, because it is still going in that direction. So therefore, the handler needs to be in a good spot so that they can help their dogs on the box scenario. It is easier for them. Otherwise, you've got dogs that will get confused and go off in the wrong direction or miss the hoop entirely. As I say, we don't then use the box unless the spacing is wide enough. And we don't look at the box as, oh, I know, I'll set up a trap for these handlers. Don't think that there should be you should build a trap into the course, because bless you, and trust me, mate, we make our own mistakes out there, and so we don't need anything that will be a temptation to the dog. Okay, so for the faster dogs, you don't want a tight box, you want a nice generous box so that they can turn. Now, that's, in that respect, you're looking for the dog. If you're thinking, oh, I'll tell you what, I'll make a step, you then perhaps want to change your box idea so that they are doing a straight line. There's that one, and then they're doing that one. But the handler would need to be over here, possibly, or here, so that they can help their dog make that subtle change. Subtle is the word, rather than straight on. So there would be what they would call the step ladder effect, of 3 hoops where the dog can go technically straight on, but they're at slight angles to each other. Art Nouveau. So this is where setting your hoops up so that you can make a nice curving turn for the dog comes into play. Okay, so right angle turns like this, pinwheels, well, maybe all right for your training, but we don't put them into our HUK shows anymore. We might have done once upon a time, but we try now. We would rather you put in an extra hoop to help the dog make the turn. Can you see? So instead of that one, you've got 2 more to help the bend. Okay. We also have a sequence of the higher grades of dogs, whereby we call this the slalom. Now the slalom is 2, maybe 3 hoops, where the dog goes in a snake fashion between them. First thing you need is to make sure the gap between the feet of each hoop in line is the same. And if you're going to do this with barrels, I recommend you also make the gaps the same. But with the hoop slalom, you do not want decoys really in their path. So you want to have this situated where the handler will be able to be there most helpful to the dog and without temptations. So you might want your dog to do a slalom like that. What you can do is, for some of the lower classes, like we were doing, you put the barrel or a gate in so that the curve is more, they've got a marker to do it with. Then you can take that out and test the H graders without it. So, but the dogs should not be making sharp turns across the feet of the hoop. They should be able to take a curve around, and then, if needs be, to the very champion levels, as it were, the H3s, then you're looking at being able to also turn the dog away from the handler, possibly. I did put this up in an H grade course. I used a situation whereby they did a circle round. They started off, and then I asked them to get their dogs to turn away from them in a half turn and then carry back on round the circle. So it was a situation of start them off, get them warmed up, are they listening, give them the tricky bit, let them keep going. So those are things which you can look at, and we have course design examples which we can share with you to show you how they are used in courses so that you can draw out your own ideas.